This video brought to you by our Patreons. Please consider supporting this channel and joining our Patreons at patreon.com/NovaWing24.
Hi there folks, my name's NovaWing24 and welcome to another little product review of a Microsoft Flight Simulator product. So today we're going to be having a look at the first and latest release and the first release for the new sim from developer Lionheart Creations with their release of their rendition of the Trinidad TB21 GT, which is a fascinating little high performance GA aircraft which is extraordinarily capable and I think are going to be a bucket ton of fun to fly. So this is the developer Lionheart Creations' first release for Microsoft Flight Simulator, though of course they are a very seasoned developer, having produced quite a body of work for many of the previous Microsoft Sims, going back many years. And this is a really interesting and highly detailed example of this aircraft as they take their first steps into the newer and larger world. And to that end, it really showcases this developer's depth and their sort of intent to bring amazing quality detail to the sim. Unfortunately, it does in some way sometimes it does suffer from some of the holdovers of being a legacy aircraft as well. Not to say that this is a port over or anything like that. It's definitely been highly detailed and very highly and reworked to support the new sim, but there are a couple of holdovers that I think maybe the developer could have worked a little harder on. But either way, before we get too far into it, I do want to say a huge shout out to Lionheart Creations for providing me with the review copy of this aircraft today. So as I said, we're going to be having a look at the aircraft here. We're probably going to be focusing more on the external model once we get into the air, give us a chance to showcase it all over. But we'll go through, we'll do a full cold and dark start, and then we'll go do a full cold and dark start, get into the air, and go exploring in the wilds of Washington State as we head on from here, from Orcas Island, heading on to Darrington Municipal, where we'll put this aircraft through its paces, see how she flies, and then give our final thoughts as we finish up. Alright, as I said, let's jump into the cockpit, just jump into the office and get our aircraft underway and get ourselves into the air. Alright, so here we are in the office of the TB21, and it's the first thing I have to say is that I just love this design, I really do. So and it's because of how it feels and how it looks. So much like the Icon A5 in the current sim, is the modern generation, was designed by the interior designer of that aircraft, used to design for Porsche, for cars. This aircraft very much feels like you're in a car. And from the way it's laid out, the materials that it's used, and that of course is and this is the real aircraft that it does this, and it's very homely and it allows you to connect to the aircraft really quickly and easily, I feel, and it's really great how the developers actually captured that as well, which is really wonderful and great to see. Probably though, this is actually a really great time to actually see and showcase, I thought very long and hard about pointing this out, but I do, of course, want to make sure that everybody's very clear on this. As wonderful as this is, this actually also highlights a couple of the minor bugs with this aircraft. In that, and it's also a holdover from the developer's choice to use a legacy style of gauge, so using 2D XML driven gauges as opposed to 3D gauges. What you may notice is that the gauges, these 2D gauges here in the cockpits may seem a little washed out. And you may notice here that the lights, even though my battery and all my electrics are currently off, you'll notice that all the lights, the backing lights on my avionics are all powered on. Now that's to do with the developers chosen to use 2D, texture maps, sort of animated texture maps driven by XML coding rather than 3D gauges. Now don't get me wrong, it's still a perfectly valid way of doing things. It's a tried, true, and tested way of delivering gauges and content to us, but it has a particular drawback with this new sim in that the emissive or light map texture for it, i.e. when you have the gauges illuminated at night or when they've got power, you can't turn it off. So it means that they are always illuminated. So even when you have no power to the aircraft, it will still show as illuminated. Does it mean that it's unusable? Absolutely not. It doesn't. It means it's just a little foible and little quirk of the cockpit. So you've got to be aware of it. Does it destroy your immersion? I don't think it does, but it's just something that is. I see it and I just go. It does sort of. It's noticeable. It doesn't jar me completely, but it also is noticeable as well. Now the developer has. I want to stress here, the developer is aware of it, and they are working to try and find ways around it and improve on it. So it's not like they're not going to do anything about it. They are working towards improving it, and this aircraft itself has undergone a lot of changes since and a lot of improvements since it was first released on the marketplace a few months back. So I do want to say, as I said, it's one of those things where the developer is aware of it, they are working on it, but it is just something to be aware of before as you go forward. All right, so let's before we get started here, let me just quickly calibrate my altitude here. So to 9.9. There we go. Okay, that's looking good. All right, now let's get our. Also, now you may have noticed that on the outside of the aircraft when we're looking around that you saw the reds there. So the pitot heat tube was covered. The static port was had a remover for flight tag on, and there were chocks on there as well. Now they are all controlled from a little pushback gauge here, so button here repurposed in the cockpit called and it's labeled park mode. So a simple flick of that switch will turn those on and off. It's just physical; they don't do anything in the sim, but it's a nice little touch that I like. So of course we've done our pre-flight inspection, so we're going to be disabling and turning those off. So now that's done, we can continue on with our start process. Alright, so I'm going to make sure that my parking brake is on. It is. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to go make sure we've got our fuel tank. So we're going to set our fuel tank to the right tank to get ourselves started today. Alright, mixture is full rich, prop forwards. Alright, battery master is on. Okay, lighting system test, and it's good. That's there. Okay, fuel pump turn on, bring the pumps up. Alright, beacon is on. Turn our magnetos, and throttle cracked, and start engine. Okay. Oh, that would be because I had switched the fuel to off. Don't mind me, I'd switch fuel off. Let's try that again, instead of fuel, now that I've actually got fuel through. There we go. That helps there. So that is actually, again, just one slight thing about good actually to showcase this one as well as we sort of spool our engine up here and test the RPMs. Is that the fuel system is modeled accurately, so it has left and right wet wings or wing tanks. Now each of these tanks are independent and separate, so there is no cross feed. So during the flight you will need to switch between these two tanks. So yeah, I click that way to fuel close instead of to the right tank. So there you go. Yeah, even in a review video you get things wrong. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we've got everything set. We're going to set our flaps to takeoff position, and now we're going to do set our trims to takeoff. There we go. Alright, so we are looking good. So let's now release our parking brake. I must admit, calling the steering wheel, it does throw me off a little bit. Like it just, as much as I said, like I love the fact that this aircraft is very much, does have the car feel to it. But calling the yoke steering wheel does throw me off a little bit. But anyway, moving on. All right, so our beacon lights on, strobe nav lights are on, taxi light is on, everything is looking good. Now let's taxi our aircraft out. We'll go past this little cub here. We'll taxi past the fuel section. Now, one thing I noticed about this aircraft, and from reading its descriptions as well, is very true, is that it is a very slippery aircraft in that it is quite fast. It is very, very fast. So you will find that this aircraft is both comfortably at home with flying at 200, 180, cruise speed is 187 knots. So 180 knots is no problem. So max speed is 187 knots for this aircraft. So a cruise speed of sort of 170 knots is no problem for this aircraft. And even ground sort of on your approach speed, you're looking at about 90 knots, so 85 to 92 knots is your approach speed. So it is a very slippery, very quick aircraft, and that translates also to a very fast taxi speed as well. So even at idle throttle here, she does taxi quite quickly. So watch your ground handling on that, or you may tip over. But what it also makes for is it makes for some very fun and very rapid ascents. It has a climb out speed of 95, best climb speed of 95 knots. So she performs, when she's low weight, she performs a bit like a rocket, which can be a lot of fun. Alright, so we'll just put at our hold short point here, make sure there's no traffic in the pattern. We are looking good. Okay. So fuel pump on for our climb out. We're going to turn our taxi light off, turn our landing light on for our departure. Now, of course, this aircraft is a retractable gear aircraft as well, which is part of what makes this very high performance, and has quite the operating envelope. Like, not only is it as I was saying before, quite a variable operating range of speeds. It also has is quite comfortable at low and also high altitudes, with a certified ceiling up to 25,000 feet with supplemental oxygen. So this aircraft fills a really unique niche in the fact that it offers a lot to a variety of different pilots and aviators in their GA flying experience. All right, we are going to put our prop de-ice on. We're going to put our pitot heat system on just because we are flying in Washington State, so weather can be a little bit all over the place here. So everything looking good there. I did not do the alternator, so we'll just checking there. My alternator is now on as part of my post-flight checks. I should have checked that. So we are all good. Voltages are good. All right. Time to depart now. As I said, this is can be a bit of fun. So power up and brakes off. Definitely, so you feel the engine kicking quite a bit of torque as you roll down the runway as well. Airspeed is alive. 65, 70 knots rotate speed. Positive rate. Gear up. Above 95 knots. Flaps up. A little bit of a droop on that one. As I said, best climb speed of 95 knots, so flaps cleaned up, so you can have quite a high climb rate, and the POH actually does sort of talk about you can have 1500 feet per minute and higher climb rates when you are lightly loaded, as we are in this particular rendition, as we are particularly here as well. So I mean, we're talking 1500 feet per minute, a little over, while holding our 95 knot climb speed. So it's one of the things that makes it so fun, this aircraft as well. Okay, so we're going to be shooting for about a 5,000 feet cruising altitude today. So we're going to lower that nose a little, start a turn here. Landing light is off. Now, as we do our climb here, you can probably notice that some of the avionics here are definitely not the default avionics that we've come to know and love from Asobo, and look probably more something that you might more used to if you are more used to some of the legacy sims. So that's because the aircraft are fitted, many of them, especially the one that this one is based off, with Garmin G500 units rather than the G1000 units that we might be used to with some of the default aircraft from Asobo. And the developer has worked to actually bring to life this G500 unit into the new sim, and I think they've done a reasonably good job. As I said, it still suffers from being sort of the XML, 2D XML driven, so we've got that light bug, but overall the actual interface and functionality of the unit is something that for legacy simmers you'll probably find you'll be very, very used to, which is good to have. So there we are, coming up on 5,000, so just pull that there. We'll push that down a little bit hard. But the basic functionality has all been modeled pretty well here, and there's a couple of other things that the developers done as well, which I think are quite nice, which will show off as we actually put into the autopilot now as well. Alright, so we've hit our cruise altitude now. So we're going to be bringing back our throttle as we sort of get into our cruise configuration now. So we're going to lower the throttle, lower the RPMs down. Just overshot our 5,000 feet a little bit here. Alright, first things first that we're going to need to do, of course, I've pre-planned a GPS flight plan here. So we did, of course, that on the main screen before we loaded this one. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go punch in, change here to CDI. We're going to change that over to GPS. Now the other two things where you can see that, so the first time you can see it here on the interface, the visual interface here. Also it illuminates over here on this side of the cockpit as well, letting you know that there's you're in GPS nav mode here as well. Alright, so then we're going to need to turn our autopilot system on, or use our autopilot system down here as well. So first things we're going to need to do is we're going to be setting our altitude. So we're going to be arming, so we're going to go AP on to start with. Okay, we're going to go altitude, and we're going to set that. So at the moment it picks up instantly that you're on your current altitude, it grabs that. So we're going to set that to our 5,005 feet, so we're going to trim that one down. So we're going to put it into vertical speed mode and set it at 500 feet descent so we can merge with that requested altitude. And then for our wings, we're going to set it onto nav mode, and the aircraft will just gently, I had it almost right on there, so it'll just drop back a little bit, and there we go, nice and done. Now that we're set up on cruise, we'll be able to turn our fuel pump off. Right, if we were traveling in hot and high conditions or high altitude, we would need to put that on, keep it above 18,000 feet, but for now that'll be fine. Just these cooler conditions here at 6,000 feet. Alright, so for cruise, we're going to put our RPMs about 2,300 RPM. Now we are going to lean our mixture out a bit here as well. Lean our fuel flow down, 50% mixture. There we go. So nice setup for our cruise configuration. So we are all good there. There we are, done. Alright, so that's probably a good opportunity now for us to have a look at, take this opportunity now to have a look at the outside of the model and have a look in a bit more detail. And then we'll come back in, have a look at some of the other lighting aspects as well, which, as I said, some of which are done well, some of which are, could be done better. So let's now take this opportunity to look outside the aircraft and look at the external model. So the Trinidad is a French-designed aircraft from the Socata aircraft company. And it's found popularity in many countries around the world, including the US, the UK, throughout Europe, and even all the way out to Australia. The developers included 24 liveries for representing various different operators around the world and various different factory colour schemes, and supplied them in a variety of sort of factory new and sort of aged paint schemes as well. So you've got a few there that are very weather beaten with paint chips and all the sorts out there. Most have a sort of fairly believable sort of amount of grime on them. None of them that I could find a full sort of factory new clean, crystal clean ones. The only thing that I think the developer probably overdid a little bit was some of the perspex. So some of the models have sort of very perfect perspex, but a couple of them have a lot of dirt on them, and I just feel that the dirt texture's a little overdone on those ones. Like, I think it's a little overdone. I mean, don't get me wrong, it still gives it nice character, but I think it's a little overdone. Otherwise, the developer's done a huge amount of detail on the aircraft on the 3D model. So the 3D model's been overhauled from its original implementation in the legacy sims and been brought to life in greater detail again with Microsoft Flight Simulator. All the textures are supplied to us in at least 4K resolution, with beautiful high quality bitmaps, high quality texture sets provided for all of the aircraft liveries provided as well. It unfortunately, which while okay, that is a great thing to having that much choice, it does mean that the install of this aircraft is rather large, and in some ways I feel that what possibly, and this is going to sound weird, but because as a repainter, I always appreciate people having large texture sets and a large variety of textures to choose from. I sometimes think though that maybe this aircraft could have benefited from maybe having half as many textures in the core installer and maybe offering additional textures. So say maybe shipping it with 12 texture sets and then maybe offering an additional 12 as a free supplemental sort of separate installer. So if you want to have, or if you need, if you have the hard drive space and you want to have the full experience of all 24 liveries, then you still can. There's no additional cost for that. But if you say you're more premiumed on your hard drive space, then maybe sort of you could just sort of get by with say just 12 instead of 24. It's a minor thing. It doesn't affect your enjoyment of it. As I said, all the texture set is done in completely amazing high quality, high definition textures. Really, really well done. The model's this beautiful high detailed model as well. I cannot fault it. I love the attention to the detail that's been done. Like we talked about the reds that's been added in there as well. The details have been put through on the way the engine exhaust put through here, the modelling and the detail done on the undercarriage as well, the landing gear, both in its extended and its retracted form, was wonderful and great to see. So, I mean, I can't fault the model. It's definitely been cleaned up. It looks really, really well done. I just think that, as I said, it's a minor thing with the textures that I just think would be a kind of cool way to do it. Alright, so other than that, as I said, it's a pretty awesome, pretty great interior model, and exterior model, really, really well done. The lighting system is awesome as well on the outside. So let's have a look at that. So let's now jump inside the aircraft, because I want to showcase, I want to talk more about that lighting we talked about and some more of the details about the internal model as well. Alright, so back inside the aircraft, as I said, the internal textures are also done incredibly high detail textures as well. There are a couple of variations of the internal layout, so not the internal layout, the internal texture sets that differentiate between some of the external texture sets. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, it all looks amazing. It all is very, very functional. The model's definitely, from what I can tell, has been overhauled from what the original Legacy Sim one was, so it's definitely it definitely looks hard, looks better as well. Couple of other internal things to notice as well. So the VOR sort of instrument radio navigation equipment all works. However, one thing that I have noticed though that this aircraft suffers from, and again, I'm not blaming Lionheart Creations for this one, because this is a known issue with the core sim, is that it suffers from the 10-degree bug. So you can't actually set and move your course knobs by single degrees. It's all done in 10-degree blocks. So that is a known core sim issue. I'm not going to say it's not a problem for this sim, but it is a problem with the core sim. I believe Asobo are working on it. I really hope they are, because they need to. They need to get that fixed. So hopefully, as I said, I'm not blaming Lionheart for this one. I believe this is just that's a core sim issue. Just something to be aware of and something to notice, and know that if you are going to fly this aircraft and you're flying at radio nav, as I have tested out previously, it does have that 10-degree jump, which can affect your flight planning. It it does affect your flight planning. Speaking of radio nav, though, the radio nav functionalities of the G500 are fully functional as well, so you can tune in to radio frequencies as well. So if I quickly get one off here, 113 should be 113.0. So let me quickly tune that in. And stand by. Yep, there you go. So it is all this. So you can see there that it does actually work. I mean, I'm not using radio nav for this particular flight, but it is fully functional as well in that one. The two are not independent, they are synchronized, they do work together, and that's pretty much about it when it comes to instrumentation. Now, the thing I did want to showcase, as I said, was the lighting. So we talked about how the lighting for the central column here and these gauges, backlighting of these gauges, is always on. So let's just have a quickly look at what that looks like as the daylight changes. So let's just change that. Since, the sun goes down, so the torch automatically comes on. So let me quickly turn that off. Okay. So we've got our torch light off there. So what it does though is it does give you, so do you get some 3 sort of cockpit lighting options here. Make that a little darker, I think. There we go. So full dark. So you can see the backlight. The backlighting is very effective on the instrumentation. Like, it is very, very effective. It's always on. So your mileage may vary. All right. So you got 3 types of lighting here in the system. So the first one is just a push to turn on and off. So the first one is just your cabin dome lighting. So it just lights up the whole cabin. Pretty basic stuff. Then you have a sort of a orange panel lighting. Probably the most suitable for the design of the aircraft, but I must admit I'm not a fan. I much prefer the sort of what are probably the more cooler, more easier on the eye, particularly if you are flying at night, blue lighting on here. It would be nice if these were on faders rather than just on and off. That would be nice to have, but it's, again, it doesn't really affect your flying capabilities very much as well. So great to see that the developers put the lighting in. The lighting is very responsive and does flow and looks good inside the aircraft. So it is just something to just be aware of. Is it on and off? Nice there. Yeah, there you go. Just wanted to showcase that, and it gives us a really good way to actually see those gauges. As I said, when it's all illuminated, it looks great. It's one of those things where just when you are flying during the daytime, which is probably where most of your flying is going to be, it does get a little off-putting and jarring when you have that, knowing that that's on all the time. All right, let's bring us back to the daylights. So we're flying about 10 o'clock. About 10 o'clock in the morning, I think we're flying. So there you go. That's fine. All right, and this is actually also a good time to notice here. So we can see that our fuel has actually got a little bit out of balance there. So we need to manually change our fuel setting there. So let's do that here. So we're going to have to move to so we're currently draining from the left tank. So let's change that over to the right tank. There we go. Not go to close shut-off valve. So that'll now force the fuel flow to come out of the right. So there is no fuel balancing system in this aircraft. You have to manually control it yourself, which I think is a great little way the developers done it. It captured that little bit of reality of the aircraft as well. Alright, so as we take in the beautiful countryside of Washington State, we're about to head towards our final stop there. So we'll break this video here, and we'll rejoin the video as we join the circuit there at Destination Airport and at Darrington Municipal, and we'll land, taxi, and we'll give our final thoughts. So there was another little quirk that I did quickly want to show off that I almost forgot about. So in the pre-flight screen, when you're doing your weight and balance checks, it has a little bit of a quirk, this aircraft, where no matter what you set the fuel, the weight to, that the center of gravity of the aircraft will always look like it's out of whack. Now, in our test flights today, we've flown it with 75%, 8% fuel, so we definitely know the aircraft is not flying out of whack. But the visual representation here at the weight and balance screen is out of whack. So something to be aware of, a little bit of an issue. It looks like you should be fine because you can't really sort of do put much cargo in there. So just pay attention to the max weights, but the COG information is going to be out of whack for you. Alright, so here we are, just on crosswind before we turn downwind for Darrington Municipal. And we had quite the descent coming over the mountains there. Now, as I was saying before at the start of the video, one of the things about this aircraft, one of the challenging things about this aircraft is that it is very slippery. So it holds speed, it both holds speed very well, and then it gets to a point and becomes a bit of a brick. So, alright, below 120 knots, flaps take off, a little bit of kick there. So, which is going to make it very interesting because with the approach for our runway here, basically has us going past this mountain. It's going to be a bit of a challenging approach. I think I'm going to be a little close to the airfield here for this one, I think. And we're going to be wanting to make sure that we maintain 90 knots, sort of 85 to 90 knots for the approach as well. Already dropping below that, which is a bit scary. It can be flown below that 85 knots on approach, 82, 85 knots on approach, but she has a tendency, she can lose that speed very quickly. Alright, coming in. As you can see that she's holding on to that speed really, really well. Holding off, holding off. Let it gently settle. Cleaning up as we roll out. Not gonna lie to you, I'm actually fairly chuffed with that landing because during my practice video for this, I had to do 2 go-arounds before I filmed this, so I'm not gonna lie, I'm fairly chuffed with that. And it stayed pretty much on the numbers the whole time, so again, great to see. And I think, as I said, this aircraft is done pretty well. It has its symmetries, it has its quirks, but overall, I've got to admit that I think this aircraft is really well done. And because it has such a varied performance envelope, being able to fly at that sort of 80, 90 knot speed, as well as being able to go sort of 180 knot in the cruise and have such a huge altitude range as well. This aircraft, it really offers a fairly wide range of possibilities to a variety of pilots. No matter what sort of part you're interested in, this really does offer something for everyone. Alright, as we taxi along here, we'll park our aircraft up and then we'll do our final thoughts and showcase one little feature which I didn't show off at the start of the video, which I think is kind of cool. Alright, let's park over here. Park over this side so it's away from all the crowds. Well, that was random. Alright. Alright, park up here. Alright, now parking brake is set. Mixture set to fuel cutoff. Fuel cutoff, okay. Strobes, navs, taxi lights are off. Alternator is off. Mags set to off. Battery master is off, beacon light is off, everything, pitot heat also disabled. There we go, awesome, all done. All right, now probably the last thing I want to showcase as well is that this aircraft also has opening doors, and not only does it have opening doors, it also has opening cargo bay doors. So, open the cargo bay doors. So, Right, so to open up the cockpit doors, there's beautiful gull doors. I love gull doors, by the way. Like, I want to own, yeah, I just want to own something with gull doors one of these days, IRL. Anyway, and then the little red knob here has been repurposed to become the cargo door opener as well. So we'll go look at those as we look at the outside and give our final thoughts. So you can see here that we've got the door, the passenger door, so the pilot door there, the passenger door opens as well, and the cargo door open there as well, complete with your oxygen tank and a little bit of your lunch for your $100 hamburger there as well. Alright, so overall thoughts now that we've done our little flight here. Okay, so overall, I think this is a great aircraft. It offers a variety of different experiences to a variety of different GA pilots. It offers a bit more of a more traditional flying routine in the terms of the fact that it is, basic gauges. There's no glass cockpit gauges here. This is all steam-driven gauges here, with the exception of the Garmin G500 GPS unit. So it's going to be there for the challenge, the pilot who wants to enjoy a flying experience and be more hands-on with the aircraft. Overall, the numbers seem to be pretty good. The performance seems to be pretty much off the numbers. I'm pretty happy with that overall. Anything variations, probably I can put down to pilot error. The downsides to it, though, I do have to sort of look at those gauges do annoy me. Does it mean I would not recommend it? No, but it is something to be aware of. I mean, it is a negative, but I don't feel it outweighs the rest of the positives that this aircraft overall has. I said a couple of things about it. I think that, as I said earlier, I think maybe the texture maps could be done separately. But overall, I think the product is really well done. The model is highly detailed. It flies how I feel the real thing would fly. It feels great, flies great, looks great. And overall, I think that's a great endorsement there for that one. It has its foibles, it has its quirks, but overall still a wonderful aircraft and a great add-on that I would highly recommend to everybody. Alright, so with that does round out this review of Lionheart Creations Socata Trinidad TB21 GT. Thank you so much for joining me. A quick shout out once again to Lionheart Creations. Thank you very much for providing me with the review copy of this add-on. And if you want to pick this one up, this one's available direct from Lionheart Creations, or available from your favorite flight sim retailer, available now. And with that, folks, that does now round out this review. Thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget, as always, to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying these videos and want to see more. And of course, as always, you can catch up with me and all the things I'm up to between videos by finding me on Facebook, Twitter, or on Twitch. Just search Novoin24. Alright, folks, thanks very much for watching. Take care, safe skies to all, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.